Love it or leave it.
Here to discuss my new book, T-Shirt Swim Club, it's Love It or Leave It head writer, Hallie Kiefer. Make some noise, everybody.
Thank you for having me. And thank you for writing this book.
Of course, my pleasure.
Do you want to explain what it is first before we get into it? I realize I should let you in your own voice.
It's a bunch of pages with words written on them, sort of
yes.
bound together into a
delicious. Yes.
It's so I was a fat kid. I was a fat teenager, fat adult. At my fattest, I got up to around 420 pounds. And right around the pandemic, I lost a bunch of weight. I got to a kind of healthier weight. And standing on the other side of that, I was looking back at that experience, and I talk to my little sister all the time, who's also a fat kid, a fat adult. We're both still fat. And we were talking about that experience, and my little sister has a doctorate in clinical psychology. I'm a stand-up comedian, and we were talking about it. We were like,
put those minds together.
Put those minds together, and I was like, I think we could write our story and make it very interesting, and also potentially through just being very specific and very personal, and then having her apply her expertise to it, possibly help some other people who feel the same way we do. And it's not a weight loss book or like anything like that. It's more a book about being fat, honestly.
Yeah, the reason I wanted to talk about the book is I too is a T-shirt in the pool kid.
Yeah.
And I did want to ask, who came up with that? And how did we all think of that? Because it doesn't work. Everyone can still see you're fat. You know what I mean? Do you think the first kid who wore the T-shirt in the pool, do you think that they knew they were starting a trend?
I don't think so. I think it was just an any port in the storm kind of thing.
Just raw desperation.
It's
like, I gotta be wearing something in the pool. I can't be out here like this.
It's insane. It's an insane thing we do to ourselves. If anything, it accentuates the curves.
Oh,
you know?
can see every inch.
It
It
also-
draws the eye. What are we doing?
It also becomes a thing where it's like,
Yeah.
well, now a lot of people wear T-shirts in the pool because of skin cancer. Shout out.
Well,
Thank you, skin
Shout out
cancer.
skin cancer. Are they here tonight?
They're
Thanks
here
for
tonight.
coming out,
They're here
guys.
tonight. Sorry, my agents I'm with CAA and skin cancer.
Right,
Those are
yeah.
my two.
Well, listen, again, any port in a storm,
Yeah.
you know?
But like now more kids wear a T-shirt in pool, but it's still almost the signifier. It's like saying I am fat, I wear a T-shirt in the pool. And I think there is a little bit of a beauty in finding other people who wore T-shirts in the pool so we can relate to one another. But as far as logic goes, it is one of the sillier things.
Yeah, we were up to a bunch of stuff. I will say, I was like, oh, I'm really excited. Like, I've also been on a quote, this is the part, was like, when you have to say weight loss journey. But what's interesting about it is it is a journey of the self, because when you start to lose weight, a lot of stuff happens. For me, a lot of my weight stuff that I am currently on a journey about is related to ADHD, which I also didn't know I have. So reading this book really brought to mind sort of the same stigma around weight that I felt. I look back now and having ADHD, where it's like, okay, something's wrong, but I don't know what it is. And whenever I interact with other people, I immediately am stigmatized.
Yeah.
Which also I think is how I think of like queerness as well. Not to, again, immediately tell you my life, but I please Google compulsory heterosexuality. I didn't know I was queer until I was 38. I came out really late. And then looking back, and we're both millennials, like looking back at that time period, it was like, oh, I knew that I didn't want to be a lesbian before I even knew what that word meant.
Yeah.
And how similar that is to being fat as a kid, especially in the 90s.
You find out at the same time.
Yes.
It's like those snack packs where the crackers and the cheese come with it. It's
those
like
are so good.
You're fat and also it's bad. Like,
yes, exactly. Yeah.
They're packaged together. Like, I remember the first time like I really understood the concept of what being fat meant was like when someone made fun of me for being fat on the playground at recess.
Absolutely.
And through the context, I was like, oh, so that's bad. And I'm that? Okay.
Yeah, and it's like, again, like we're all absorbing things from society.
Yeah.
And it just depends on which kids in your school found out about it first and then knew sort of how to wield it. And this was also before we knew what bullying was or cared. I feel like I went to public school in the 90s and was like, good luck out there, kids.
Yeah.
We can't control you like animals.
Bullying in the 90s, often, by the way, something foisted upon fat kids in popular culture. Like, that was one of the roles you're allowed to be as a fat person is like the bully. The T-shirt doesn't quite fit. You have a buzz cut. You have like jam around your lips and you're picking up a kid and dunking him in a toilet, right?
Right, which is kind of iconic.
It is iconic. And also, I did that a lot in grade school. No,
Well, you had to. Yeah.
No, I didn't, but like we didn't really understood that bullying was like a thing that, I mean, it was like psychological torture.
Yes, yeah, it's
And also the result in my, like, of kids are terrified, right?
Yeah.
They're terrified animals, and if they can, they seek hierarchy, and if they can find anything about you that they can latch onto and attack, not out of any sort of like, like malignant intent or anything like that, but just because they're afraid. It's like musical chairs. And when you're fat, you're wearing it right out there.
Right,
you know what
yeah.
I mean? They can't hide. They don't find that out. It's just right there. So you immediately start getting sort of piled on as a kid, and it can really affect you.
And I feel like I think it's a good point, like the idea of building a hierarchy, because then it does continue into adulthood where you do meet people who genuinely think that being fat is like morally wrong.
Yeah.
A lot of people on the internet, but even sometimes in real life, people say stuff. You're like, well, you know that that's not real, right? But there is something that exists in all of us where that is fat phobia, and like that controls all of our actions. I think for me, it intersects with like being a woman for sure.
Oh, yeah.
But how much of that we learned young, and then I think with the introduction of the internet, we sort of had more body diversity and body positivity. But then how that immediately is co-opted by capitalism. So it's like, well, you could be fat, but you got to be hot, and maybe you got to be selling something. It's like, well, that's not going to help kids. That's going to make them crazy in a different way that now like younger people have to deal with.
I was talking to my sister, and we about this very thing, and we like noted that they will put fat people in commercials, and they will even put fat people in commercials for like Gatorade or for Lululemon, weirdly now, that kind of thing. But they'll only let us do sports where you don't jiggle.
Right, they can't see our big old bodies.
You have to. They're like, every time you see a fat person in a commercial, you'll notice this. They're doing like very slow yoga. It's like very intentional move, or they're doing Tai Chi. They would never show us on top of an exercise bike, no matter how often we get up on top of an exercise bike.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
It's sort of similar to. Do you remember at the Oscars, John Cena came out like basically nude?
Yeah,
and he was totally hairless. And I think there's like fatness is connected to like some animal part of ourselves in the way that like body hair is.
Yeah.
So it's like we can depict you, but you better not be moving. Like you better not be you better not make me think about your fat ass body. And what's crazy about this conversation is we're not even as fat as either of us have ever been.
Right.
So it's like people see this like we're not that fat, and I still think of myself. And that's also a question I want to ask about the book is like you were fat as a kid, and then now you're less fat, but then I was fat as a kid. Then less fat, and then fat again as an adult, and then less fat now, due to like medical intervention. And I still think of myself as fat to the point I was speaking to someone and I referenced a fat person. They go, and I'm like, oh no, I'm me. I was like, oh no, I'm not just insulting this person. But once you use the word, I still think of it as like, well, yeah, fat.
Yeah, I mean, I think especially if you are fat younger. But honestly, really, any time, if you sort of cross that threshold and start to realize what it is like to live life like that in a world that is designed primarily, for people of regular size, even all this language, right?
Yeah.
Like regular, skinnier people, right? People who aren't fat, that never leaves you, from the set, like, and there are so many experiences that are shaped by it or affected by it, whether you're just walking down the aisle of an airplane, and you see all these eyes looking back at you, like begging you not to sit next to them, just like hoping. And then you sit down and it's like a heavy sigh. And you're like, listen, lean in, I'm soft. Get in here. I'm not shy. Like, please. But, there's that experience. But everything, the way people are kind of rude to you or assume you're dumb or lazy or any of these things, like, or that it's a moral failing, or it's a lack of effort on your part, or a lack of knowledge. Like you're some idiot who goes to Arby's for like 5 meals a day, right? And you're like, it's like, no, if nobody knows how to lose weight more than a fat person.
Right, yeah, because it's sort of like given to you as like your lifelong mission.
Yeah.
And if you're not doing it, which for a while I actually wasn't, like I kind of was like meant like actively like I just can't do this. But then like it's like by interacting with you, it brings up everyone else's like all the stuff they learned about being fat. And I did want to bring about, you do talk about fat bastard a lot, and I was like, boy, that really wasn't good at the time. In a time where you had no fat people in movies and TV at all, it was like, what if a fat person was the most disgusting person in the world?
In the 90s,
what about that,
in the 90s, I had John Goodman and Santa Claus, and I'm Jewish, so I had John Goodman, right? Like it's that, like that's kind of, and I guess the Notorious B.I.G. and those were like the good fat people, like in the 1990s. The fucking thing about Fat Bastard is he was also funny.
That's true. That's true. He's funny as hell.
It was funny because it's Michael Myers at his creative peak, channeling all this energy into this character, and he's funny. And what's devastating about like Michael Myers is about the fat bastard character, like even in the movie, like he would say like I'm sad because I eat, and I eat because I'm sad, right? Which touches on something that like as a kid in a movie theater you've never seen that expressed before.
Yeah, you're like, oh, I wish it wasn't fat bastard saying that.
Well, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And then he says it 3 seconds later. He farts for 15 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you're like, fuck, that's funny.
It's funny as hell.
What was that thing I was feeling right before he farted?
Speaking of, I wanted to talk to you about a quote because Nicola Coughlan, I've never said her name out loud until now. I realized from Bridgerton, she's fat, and there's been like all this conversation about like, oh, she's not attractive or whatever, and she talks about, I guess there's a sex scene that she shot, and she's like, I really wanted to be fat and naked, and it meant a lot to me. She said, it felt like the biggest fuck you to all the conversations surrounding my body. It was amazing empowerment. I feel beautiful in the moment. I thought, when I'm 80, I want to look back at this and remember how fucking hot I looked. How much of your personal negative feelings about being fat stem from feeling unfuckable? Because I think for me, it was like 95%. Like, it was once you like reach puberty, like as a kid, you don't know anything. But like after that, it was like, oh no, no one will ever have sex with me. Ergo, no one will love me.
Yeah.
If you're fat. And that was it. You're just like, okay, I guess we all agreed on that.
It's a massive part of it. Like the pursuit of sex and just any kind of like romantic relationship in like completely unavailable to me for like, you know, from just like getting a smooch in grade school and then middle school, I guess hand stuff. I don't know. I don't know what other people would do.
We all know. Give it up. Yeah.
And then like... And then, like, sex in high school, all like the pursuit of all that stuff. Of course, obviously, your hormones are saying, go get that anyway. So you're already dealing with those feelings. And then you're kind of, you're seeking the relationships and you're seeking the sex, but you're also seeking the feeling of, I'm not different. You know, like, I'm okay. And for me personally, like, a lot of my bad feelings absolutely came from that. And I think a lot of, like, the most fucked up things I ever did in relationships came from me turning... the fucked up things that I did in relationships and also that I allowed to happen to me came from this idea of being desired sexually means that you're okay. You know, rather than starting from a place. Yeah, where it's like, I am affirming myself through your relationship with me. So then especially if you start to get like a little bit successful, like in any field, and then you become more confident and people are just naturally more drawn to you because you're confident, you feel good about yourself. But you've been so fucked up for so long that when somebody starts liking you, you're like, you only like me because of I'm successful. Yeah,
you really put yourself, it's like you're so used to punishing yourself, even when it's not the same scenario, you have to punish yourself. Like you can't allow yourself to be happy in any way. And again, I think like reading your book, I was like, oh, I know exactly what you're talking about. You reference how like you were hooking up with your first like high school girlfriend. You're like, oh no, she's gonna realize I'm fat, and it's like, well, yeah, she sees you, like But I felt the same way. When I was like, oh, he's gonna realize I'm fat, or they're gonna realize I'm fat. It's like, yeah, no, they got eyes, like they're, you know, but that you can't accept that. Like it's like and it comes from the internal thing. It's like I can't accept the way I look, even when I then lost weight and was like I had a mindset of, like it puts you in a situation of like, oh, I it's almost like my soul is fat, and they will see that. It's like, no, it's just the body.
Anyone who is able to sort of achieve any sort of body positivity or neutrality about themselves as a fat person is remarkable, because I think it is getting a little bit better now, which is not to say that it's good. But, I mean, you are fighting against almost every force, you know, in the world telling you it's bad. From, you know, people making the butt of a joke, you know, like in movie, like, in the 90s, like for boys, it was like Fat Bastard, Eric Cartman. There was a character called Donkey Lips and Salute Your Shorts who looked just like me.
Oh, I remember Donkey Lips.
Yeah,
yes.
Like all this stuff. And then you have that force, and then you have like the faux, I want to help people like Bill Maher, who do treat it like a moral failing, and then who condescend to you and like want to help you up. And now in the media, like the only time you really see fat people, it's you're either still the butt of the joke, or you're this tragedy porn, you know, where it's like My 600-Pound Life, where they dress it up in the guise of, oh, we're a documentary crew, we just want to see what it's like. Or when The Biggest Loser came out, it's like, we just want to help these people lose weight. It's like, you don't want to help these people lose weight. You want to put a fat person on a treadmill, play sad music, and then abandon them as soon as the commercials are over. You know, like it's that. So if you are able to achieve some semblance of like good feeling about yourself, that's a fucking miracle.
There was, of course, a South Park episode this week where basically the joke was that if you can't afford Ozempic, or one of the weight loss shots, you just get Lizzo. Like Lizzo's the other product. And there's a quote that says, rich people get Ozempic, poor people get body positivity. And I think what's so hard about that is like, a lot of it, like, it's like a lot of it is medical. Like a lot of it is like a medical, like we're seeking normalcy, and normalcy is so culturally enforced and then like is so based on shame. But also, at least in my case, like I did need to lose weight. And so it's sort of when it entirely becomes a question about how we feel, it makes it so much harder to actually get to deal with the fact that it is medical and that it is a biological thing that like sometimes for many of us, like medical intervention is a necessity and is helpful, but then it's like you're just emotionally caught of like, oh, it's this or this, and it's like it's actually so many things. It's actually thousands of things, and all these forces that like crush the individual. But it's like none of us individually can be the person who solves this.
100% right. And it's a strange thing where you do feel like compelled to, you almost feel like you're abandoning fat people if you lose weight, or you're like, I am then a part, you're like, I'm siding with the people who say it's unhealthy and you lazy fat asses need to like lose some weight. They're like, is this weird feeling of guilt about it? But I just think, I was talking to somebody the other day and we were talking about fatness, and they said, I was talking about how I lost a bunch of weight because I needed to lose a bunch of weight for my health. And they put it to me like this. They said, you started being healthier and you lost weight as a result, right? And that's fine. I think that's a better way to look at it. You start behaving healthier. You start eating a little healthier. Because there are very unhealthy people who weigh 130 pounds.
Exactly. You can't punish yourself into health. And whatever your weight is or however you look at this, that's what we're constantly asked to do. We're constantly asked to punish ourselves. And it starts with your childhood. It's like, oh, I'm going to punish a child, and that's somehow we will grow up to be like a healthy adult. That never works. It's not working for anybody. And I think the one nice thing about the internet is at least to have like different depictions of the body in and of itself is valuable. And I don't know. I just really, but get the book, read the book.
Thank you.
Get the library.
It's all in there.
Thank you for talking to me about this. I really appreciate
it. Thank you for talking to me about it.
Of course.
Hallie Kiefer, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you so much.